We have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at in today's video. Today we're looking at some offseason speculation around the Nashville Predators, a team that supposedly won the offseason, expecting big things, have really had a disastrous season. Could we see some of their top players that were signed maybe be moved this offseason to shake things up and look for a different mix going into next year? We'll discuss those possibilities. Plus, could we also see another trade involvement in the Philadelphia Flyers? Another young player in Buffalo could be an offer-sheet target, according to Frank Saravalli. Plus, we have some more key signings, players coming out of college that are going to be making their NHL debuts, as well as a couple of high-profile prospects between tonight and tomorrow. We have some more news as well on the NHL rights package that was signed between the NHL and Rogers. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. A couple of quick items here to start things off. One, yesterday we had Emil Bemstrom on waivers of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He in fact has cleared so he can be reassigned to their AHL affiliate. The NHL has also revealed today their 3 stars of the month and their rookie of the month, which we'll get into here first. The 3 stars of the month include Jack Eichel, the Vegas Golden Knights. He had a monster month and has kind of put himself in conversation here, one of the top players in the league for the entire season. Jack has been huge for Vegas, putting up 23 points in 14 games. The second star of the month was former Leaf captain John Tavares. It feels weird saying that since he's still with the team, but he's had a really, really solid run here as of late, scoring 13 goals and 20 points in his last 15 games, which we talked about yesterday, saying, is this level of production going to cause issues with his, contract negotiation to remain a Leaf now that his $11 million 7-year deal is coming to a close here this summer? We discussed that yesterday, so that'll be interesting to watch here, depending on how he performs down the stretch. The third star of the month, Jordan Binnington of the St. Louis Blues, has been on an absolute tear, winning games left, right, and center since the Four Nation faceoff break. Benner has 8 wins and a .910 save percentage during the month of March. The rookie of the month was Habs defender Lane Hudson. I know there's a lot of debate out there on who the rookie of the year is going to be. Feels like lately we're starting to see Lane Hudson kind of pull away. During the month, he ended up participating in 14 games, putting up 1 goal, 14 assists for 15 points. He's just racking up the assists, a huge part of the Canadiens' offense. So be curious to see how things finish in the Rookie of the Year, voting and all that, but he's definitely very much in the conversation, and many consider him to be the front runner. Now, before we jump into the other news and signings today, I just want to acknowledge as well a member of the NHL alumni, and sadly and unfortunately passed away at a fairly young age, and as former NHL goaltender Mark Laforest. And many of you probably remember, if you're anywhere near my age, and at least in your 30s or 40s, you probably do remember Mark Laforest. He originally was signed in '83 by Detroit, came out of junior hockey, played with the Red Wings for a few years, ended up getting traded to Philly, played there for a few more years. Then he had a run with the Toronto Maple Leafs for a while, played a bit with the Ottawa Senators too. Certainly had a pretty decent run. He was never a big superstar, but the fact that, just to make it to the NHL is really quite something when you think about it. Laforest, like I said, was a little bit of a journeyman goaltender. Didn't have a huge run or anything in one particular spot, but had a pretty solid career. Was heavily involved with the Alumni Association as well, post-retirement, and just seemed to be a well-respected guy that was loved by his teammates. And like I said, he's still not really all that old if you think about him. So clearly another case of somebody gone way too soon. So certainly want to offer our condolences to Laforest's friends and family. Some other news around the league. We do have a lot of signings and some high-profile prospects that we're going to see making their debut. For example, tonight we're going to see the Capitals forward Ryan Leonard, their 8th overall pick last year, or 2 years ago in 23, make his debut tonight against the Boston Bruins. Of course, Ryan Leonard's spent the last couple of years at Boston College, so of course didn't have far to go to meet up with the team, and will be making his debut at the Boston Garden tonight. Of course, gets to join Ovechkin and his the great 8 chase, they're calling it, for his record of tracking down Gretzky's record here. Apparently, we also learned today on Some of the, I think it was on TSN, they were talking about that. The NHL is actually going to have more camera crews and Gary Bettman, Wayne Gretzky, etc., kind of following Ovechkin around once he gets down to about 4 goals. So right now he's at 5. So if we see Ovechkin get 1 or 2 more goals, they want to make a really big deal out about it, and obviously have a huge celebration, likely during the game and after the game when it happens. So Gretzky, Bettman, Bill Daly, and others are going to be following him around to make sure everything is documented and they can have an immediate celebration, since it's such a big deal. The other big name prospect making his debut tonight is Jimmy Snuggerud with St. Louis, as the Blues do battle here with the Detroit Red Wings. Snuggerud looks to be a pretty solid prospect, former first rounder. And then tomorrow the Rangers are going to have Gabe Perreault in the lineup as they do battle with the Minnesota Wild. So it's going to be an interesting couple of days as we see these guys who have been highly touted prospects, for the last couple of years here since they've been drafted, going through college and making a name for themselves. Now they get the first taste of NHL action and see how that goes. As I mentioned, we have some other signings around the league, many of which are college related. The Vegas Golden Knights are signing their 2024 first round pick, Trevor Connolly, who is playing at Providence College. He put up 13 points in 23 games. Before that was 2 years in the USHL. California-born forward will be turning pro here. Obviously, some are a little bit surprised by this one. I mean, Connolly was not a player that was dominating to the level that you would expect to come out of college after only 1 year. But clearly, the Vegas Golden Knights must feel that it's best for his development. So I'm not sure exactly where he plays. I would suspect it's not going to be in Vegas next year, but obviously another form of hockey that'll be best for his development. The New York Rangers have signed a 21-year-old goaltender who's picked up a lot of attention here from UConn. Goaltender Callum Tung. It's a 3-year ELC. Played 15 games this past year with a 201 goals against and a 933 save percentage. Callum Tung is a Canadian-born from BC, 6'3", and like I said, had a solid run there with UConn. Certainly generated a lot of attention, but at 21 years old, definitely needs some further development. So again, the Rangers can add another decent goalie prospect here to their system. The Boston Bruins study also had another signing as well, signing Latvian forward Dons Lush-Milas. He gets a 3-year ELC, played at UMass Amherst. He is going to report to the American Hockey League on an amateur tryout. The Latvian-born forwards, a 2022 4th-round picks, played in the World Juniors the last 3, actually, for Team Latvia. You probably remember him if you watched that tournament. Had some pretty decent showings there for his country. So an interesting forward there nonetheless. That'll go to the Providence Bruins here to finish out the rest of this campaign. A few injury updates around the NHL as well. Connor McDavid with the Oilers continues to skate. Still a little ways away. And him and Stuart Skinner both approximately going to be out for about another week is the expectation there. And Vancouver, they do fear that centerman Philip Hedl, of course, who came over in that big JT Miller deal, could be done for the season. Of course, that's his 5th concussion to pro hockey level at age 25. Certainly, it's dangerous, and you got to start thinking about your long-term outlook here. I can't say it's the end for him. It's way too early for that. That would be a shame for him and the team both, but there is real concern that he may not come back this year, so we'll have to wait further updates there. In Ottawa as well, they recalled Angus Crookshank again. He was recalled not long ago, never did play. Brady Tkachuk is going to miss tonight's game against the Buffalo Sabres. Considered day-to-day with an upper body injury. He did have a weird collision with Penguin defenseman Ryan Graves on Sunday. Graves was given an interference penalty for the play, but it was just kind of a weird thing where they didn't really see each other until the last second and had a collision. It looked like, if anything, I couldn't quite tell from the camera angles, but it looked like he kind of got hit up like closer to the face. So I'm not really sure exactly what the injury is. Brady did come back and play the rest of the game, so I think some fans were not really aware. I don't think it's too serious. If he could come back and play, it's probably nothing too crazy, but they certainly don't want him. They want to make sure he can play down the stretch, and they're hoping to clinch their spot here sooner than later. But they're not clear enough to do that. They're going to have to go through probably, I would suspect, another week. They have 4 games this week. They play tonight, Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday. Depending on how those games go, they could hopefully clinch by the weekend, but it could be a little bit longer. It really boils down to not only how they do, but the teams below them. as well. So again, pretty significant update there in Ottawa. Now, another update on the Canucks, and this one's regarding head coach Rick Tocchet. We had comments today from Elliotte Friedman as well. He wrote a new article kind of outlining further information. We talked before that Friedman had talked on a recent podcast. I don't think it was the very last one, but one of his recent ones, saying that he didn't see Rick Tocchet going into next season without an extension, because right now the way his contract is structured is that there's a club option for next year. So he's technically under contract as long as the team wants to exercise that option. They could choose not to, and he could become a free agent. They could mutually part ways. That's a possibility. At this point, that's not expected to happen. But what Friedman had previously said a little while ago was that he just didn't see, given the good relationship with Tocchet and ownership and the management crew and the whole history, that they just didn't see that being something that any of them would want to do. That, if Tocchet didn't really want to coach, if he decided he wanted to change, that they would probably let him out. And then we had reports from Thomas Drance saying that, from what he's heard, the Canucks fully intend on exercising their club option. Well, the update from Elliotte today says that the Canucks basically have made it pretty clear that they fully intend on Rick Tocchet being their coach next year, either on the club option being exercised or the fact that they've worked out a contract extension. But he also went on to say that the Canucks have had negotiations with Tocchet and that an extension offer was presented, but it was ultimately turned down. Tocchet ended up rejecting the offer, so he says that he feels that for them to retain Tocchet on an extension, they're going to have to go to a level of compensation that they may not have ever gone to on a coach before, and he doesn't know, how ownership and everybody's going to feel about that. Could be a stumbling block, but like I said, I would think that if Tocchet decides he really wants to move on, I don't see them holding him back, but all these latest reports suggest that they plan on exercising that club option, which means he's under contract, which means he has to be, in working with them next year. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this goes, but that's the latest intel from Elliotte, is that they do intend to exercise that club option, and it may not, even if there's no extension, that he could still be coaching next year. And I do wonder how that's going to affect everything, because, if he really wanted to move on and they don't let him, that's going to just damage the relationship anyway. So it's kind of hard to make sense of it all. Now, as I mentioned, a few other things to take a look at here today. One, Philadelphia, young defenseman Cam York still have a future with the Flyers. We know that there was an altercation, which was not the only reason why Tortorella was fired as the head coach of the Flyers, but certainly played a role in it, I think it's fair to say. We've learned today, then this is speculation from, I believe it was Ryan Whitney that was saying that he's heard that Tortorella, when they were having a verbal disagreement or, the shouting match or whatever it was, we know there's some kind of verbal altercation, which everybody that knows anything says that they went too far, crossed the line, both sides were kind of in the wrong, that Tortorella apparently yelled at him that if you re-sign here, I'm going to bury you. And obviously York fired back and things get out of hand. Now, was Tortorella out of hand and out of line for saying that? Absolutely he was. But, obviously it's fair to say that the team overall, not just Tortorella, hasn't been thrilled with his development, how things have gone. And there's still some wondering if York is a player that could be dealt in the offseason. Certainly, somebody who was drafted with a lot of pedigree, a high-ranking prospect at the time, hasn't quite, found that spot, lived up to the hype here just yet, had his moments, but, early on, I think he was somebody that Tortorella kind of gained respect for, because I remember in Torts' first season, he was kind of sent down, and he was kind of taking a step back after Tortorella arrived. He went from getting more of an opportunity to less of an opportunity, and I remember Torts saying how he respected how he handled it. He took it like a pro, went down, worked on his game, and then he later got called up and did much better, and that, he earned some respect from Tortorella. But obviously things have kind of gone by the wayside, and they've had their other issues since then, because like I said, it's not one thing that led to the dismissal of Tortorella, but that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. So we will see. But there's still some wondering that even though Torts is gone, if York could also be gone, it might be a player that they consider using as trade bait to try to shake things up and move forward next year. We know that the Flyers are certainly still rebuilding, still looking for some more pieces to take this to the next level, and maybe he's a player they consider moving. So it wouldn't be shocking if we see that this offseason. Also, as well, an update on the NHL rights deal on TSN tonight. Darren Dreger had an update saying that the NHL rights package for Canada that Bettman and company had negotiated was put forth to the board today and was voted unanimously to accept and approve that deal with Rogers for 12 years. Still mind-boggling that they would do a 12-year deal in this kind of situation. I really think they should go shorter term so they can renegotiate more, more frequently, probably up the price more. I don't know. I'm not sure a 12-year deal makes sense, but what's done is done. But the part that I had speculated on yesterday is I wondered if other parties could still be involved. Like, we know there's Amazon Monday Night Hockey. We know, TSN does a lot of regional stuff. Like, how's this all going to work? Is there any chance that there's more to this? And we have learned that according to what Darren Dreger had to tell us today, that there's still available sub-licenses that are available from an agreed-upon list of companies. So we don't know who's all on that list, but I suspect, for example, Amazon would be. I would think to some degree TSN might be as well. So there's still another one night a week that's up for grabs. So, will Amazon want to bid on that and try to become more of a full-time partner? Because I believe right now they only have an agreement, I believe, just for this year as a kind of a trial basis. So there is still another night that's up for grab that could get a sub-license to a company like Amazon. So they could still possibly be involved. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. And the French rights deal is still separate as well. So obviously that's still something that's going to be negotiated and will bring in more money. So there's still, when we said it was $7.7 billion, which is US, around 11 billion Canadian, that's just the Rogers portion. More money could be brought into the league between the French rights deal and if another broadcaster picks up the other license for one night a week, which is possibly, like I said, the Monday Night Hockey that we see now on Amazon. So there could be more money here yet again. So it might not be fully finalized, but it sounds like there will be other parties involved here. Now, as I mentioned as well, a couple of things that were brought up on the Daily Faceoff live show today with Frank Suravalli. One is the Nashville Predators. Talking with former Predators goaltender Carter Hutton, talking about how disastrous this season has gone. Everybody thought the Predators kind of won the offseason last year. They had already had some good pieces there. They had previously brought in Ryan O'Reilly the year before. They still had Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, and then they extended UC Saros on a long-term deal. They get all the top free agents, basically, with Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea, and then look what happens. They completely crap the bed and are one of the worst teams in the league. It's crazy how bad this team has been this year. And after winning the offseason, so to speak, it's terrible. Now they've got the problem here, too, is that they do have a few players that are on the younger side of it that are pretty good. But generally speaking, they have an old core. And this core are a group of players that all have a lot of term tied up, term and money, and older years, and they're not getting it done, which makes it awfully hard to rejig things. Now, some talk between Saravalli and Hutton is, could they move any of these veterans to shake things up and try to find a different mix, even though a lot of them are locked up? They still, now, according to their conversation, they still seen UC Saros, Roman Josi, and Philip Forsberg as kind of being the main pieces there that they felt were contributing more and were, not even guys you would really want to consider moving. But they did talk about, even though it would be challenging, maybe Stamkos or Marchessault. Stamkos has a full no move, so he'd have to be on board with it. Marchessault has a no move clause, so he can't go to the minors, but he also has a 15-team no trade. So obviously, Marchessault could be dealt to some degree without his consent, but depending on where he wants to go, obviously, could have to be involved there as well. So Stamkos would have to approve any trade. Marchessault would be about 50-50. Now, what do you do there, right? I mean, if you look at their numbers and how everything worked out, I mean, is another team going to want to take on Stamkos at $8 million, based on how things have gone in Nashville this year? Like, some teams like Vegas and Tampa made really hard choice decisions last year and let these, core pieces go that have been there and the key contributors, and not like they can't contribute at all anymore, but, is Stamkos an $8 million player? I don't think that there's too much term, I would think, on both of these guys, that I don't think we're looking at a buyout. They both signed 4-year contracts, so there's 3 years left. It makes it really, really difficult here. But, are we going to see Barry Trotz? Could he talk to Stamkos and say, is there somewhere else you'd consider going? And even if he does that, can they get it worked out? This Predators team has so much, good-looking talent on paper that it's a shame that they're not doing better. But clearly, they just don't have it. And like I said, they have an aging core with a lot of money tied up. So how do you go about changing it? It's going to be challenging. If you only kind of, pick around the edges here, are you really going to get better? Like, it's just hard to imagine how this team can really move forward without a significant shake-up type of trade. And that's going to be challenging to do. So, obviously, like I said, the way they were talking, they didn't have any intel to suggest that they're definitely going to do that. But you have to think Barry Trotz is thinking about it because of how this year went. So we'll see where things go on that front. They also talked about JJ Peterka in Buffalo, who's been kind of in and out of conversations here in the rumor mill in the last few weeks about a potential player that could be targeted. We know at the deadline back about, obviously, we're getting close to a month ago now, about 3 weeks ago, that his name had come up before the deadline as being a target by a few teams. The Sabres, I don't think were shopping him, but he was a player that was attracting a lot of attention because he's been successful. We know the Sabres needed to make some moves because things weren't going well. So it's only natural that he'd be a player that teams would ask about. Obviously, the asking price was so high that we never really got close. But could it happen again? It's likely going to happen again. We know the Sabres are probably going to push for another hockey trade or two, trying to shake things up further. They did the one big deal with the Senators, and there's bound to be at least one or two more, I would think, trying to go into next year. And certainly Peterka, to me, is a guy they probably don't really want to trade, but they also they're going to need to sign him. So that's going to be a big money deal if he stays. So, how much term of money are they going to be willing to give a guy based on what else they have on the books? So there's that whole equation. He should be somebody they want to invest in, but are they going to be at a chance where if they take too long, could he be an offer sheet target? That was the other big thing that Sarah Valley talked about today. We've heard a lot about some teams like Philly, for example, that we just talked about with Cam York. They're expected to be a team that could be in that offer sheet mode after watching what St. Louis did last year. Wouldn't be surprising to see multiple offer sheets again this summer and, short-term big money deals trying to win players over. So, again, Peterka could be a target. I think the Sabres, to me, he's a player that you probably want to keep and be a part of that future. He's been really good for them. I wouldn't wait too long to get him signed so that you can rest easy that he's not going to be a target, because if he's out there a little bit, into the offseason, I can see it being something that could be sneakily done. And really for a player like him, I'm sure, I don't know how he feels about Buffalo, but, after a couple of losing seasons, is he going to be wondering the future direction of the club? Would he be more inclined in that situation to consider accepting an offer sheet than somebody who is maybe in a better situation? So hard to say. Let me know what you think down in the comments. We'll talk further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.